my pleasure to be here with you all today. That was Beyond the Diamond, Roberto Clemente, Identity and Activism. I had the pleasure of hosting this panel discussion, so I want to just give some housekeeping items and introduce who our speakers are for today. So first we have speaker one is Consuela Barber-Lopez. She's the executive director of, don't let me mispronounce it, AMANDLA. Thank you very much. And she's also a board member of the Michigan Roundtable, who I'm here to represent. That's a round of applause here. We also have Gary Anderson, is the producing artistic director of Plowshares Theatre. Welcome. And we, last but definitely not least, we have Candido Tirado, who is the playwright. We titled this particular portion a live post-show conversation hosted by the Just Communities podcast. That is a program of the Michigan Roundtable for Just Communities. Before that, we do have to take a quick moment to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Streamline. Streamline is a platform that allows you to record and broadcast live. So Streamline, broadcast smarter, reach further. Visit at streamline.com. So, good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Joe Drew-Hundley, and I serve as the Deputy Director for the Michigan Roundtable for Just Communities. At the Michigan Roundtable, we believe that stories have the power to build community, challenge assumptions, and help us imagine a more just future. That's one of the reasons that we're so excited to be here and be a partner with Plowshares Theatre Company for today's conversation. Roberto Clemente's story isn't simply a baseball story. It's a story about identity, it's about service, courage, and what it means to use your platform in service of others. I was very moved to be a part of this. I didn't know what to expect, but it was amazing. It's also a story that invites us to think about the intersections of Black and Latino experiences, community leadership, and what responsibility we have for one another. So today we're fortunate to be joined by the people who help bring the story to life, as well as a community leader who can share some additional perspective coming from here in Detroit. So just to start off, Gary, the first question to come to you, if you don't mind grabbing that microphone. You don't have to hold it close. You can just speak as you normally will. So there are a lot of stories that could be told on stage. What was it about Roberto Clemente's story that made you feel like this was a story that everyone who will experience needs to experience now?
Well, I have to give credit where it's credit due. I mean, actually, the idea of doing it about Clemente was Candido's. I wanted to do something. I was looking to do something with baseball because I thought baseball had a form where you could talk about the challenges of equity and identity and access. So, but when we got focused on Clemente, it became clear that he was a perfect example of the type of person, the character of the person that we wanted to actually kick off this initiative with.
Oh, that's amazing.
I mean, just you saw the play, so you know exactly what I'm talking about in regards to. We don't have individuals like him being prominently presented in our culture today, or being used as a way in which to encourage young people to create their own identity.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And obviously giving credit where it's due, anything to add just around that same question, what was it about this story that inspired you to start on this journey to bring it to stage?
Well, I've been trying to write about a story about Clemente for a long time. And when Gary asked me to think about a story about Latino, Black intersectionality, I mean, I lived it. I was born in Puerto Rico. When I came to New York, my mother married a Black man. I went to a Black university, so I have these two cultures, the African American cultures I lived with, and also the Puerto Rican culture. And when I look back at Clemente, he was living that life too. And so it was an easy connection for me, because I could connect to Clemente. I always known his name my whole life, and he had this massive experience. Also, had done a lot of research on him. So I just wanted to kind of put my story and his story together, and to bring out this story about social activism. Like in the play, it says there's a lot of our Latino Afro-Latino. A lot of times they don't feel Afro-Latino, but there's many reasons why that occurs. And I wanted to talk about that because that's a very, the subject matter right now is very topical. You know, people are talking about it. There's strides being made on both sides to connect. So that's why I put the story together.
Well, that's great. And if you don't mind passing to Consuela, we talked a lot just about the social justice aspect of it and the Afro-Latino just perspective. And if you don't mind sharing a little bit about your background and then how the words that these gentlemen have said resonates with you, just knowing that the proud perspective that you have.
Growing up, Afro-Latin has been challenging. One of my favorite historians that was mentioned in the play, Arturo Alfonso Schomburg, was told when he was in elementary school that Black people didn't have a history. And during that time, I was a young girl being bused to Grosse Pointe schools. And outside the schools were protesters, white protesters. And when I got into the classroom, they didn't know what to do with me. And so here I was a black face, but I had a Latin name. And so they shortened my name to Connie Francis, and I wouldn't respond. And so I was myself and a Native American girl and African American boy were the only ones in the classroom. They separated all the kids of color. And we would get abused and beaten all the time. And I didn't understand. It was my first time ever hearing the word nigger. And I didn't understand what the word nigger was. I didn't understand why these white people were angry at me. I was just a child. And so that began my story of researching who I was, my family history and legacy to the point that I understand my full history. So Roberto Clemente, along with Robinson, was my father. He grew up watching them, and they were his favorite. Baseball was the key in our family to the point we had teams in our family along with trophies. So like this play brought back a lot of memories, and I'll finish the rest of everything. Next questions?
Sure. No, thank you. Thank you. I was reading my questions like, you're going to have to get into the but no, so just to bring it back, and I'll start back with you, Candido, and I want to hear from you as well, Gary. Something that was very apparent to me as I watched this, it was a very deep sense of care in how Roberto was portrayed. It wasn't just an athlete, right? You really honed in on the human side and as a human being. Can you all talk a little bit about, just the care that went into that and kind of how that was developed as you all worked on bringing this play to stage?
Well, the thing that jumps out really fast is, his athletic prowess, and you have to put that in the play. I didn't want to. Then I start asking questions like, how much activism, and I started doing research, and so that he met with Dr. King in Puerto Rico, I think 2 times, and then I also wanted to take care of his family. They were very wise people, so I said, well, I need to take care of that. I also want to take care of his humanity, his wife, his everyday person also. I think in the first act, I talk about more about him learning what the challenges were. And the second act, he's more mature, and that's when he becomes an activist. In the first, he reacts. In the second, he activates. And I think he had a lot of help from his family, obviously from his friends, from his mentors. That's how I approached the work. Now, I like to say that part of doing this play was really difficult because it's a man that I always admired, and you have to erase that from your head, I read so many books, so many articles that after a while I was overwhelmed. So the first time I wrote this play was over 5 hours long. Many scenes have been discarded. I mean, scenes that I love. Even the other day we cut one. So it's been a challenge, but it's something enriching to me.
Absolutely. And so from your perspective, what would you add, or, just how did you see that as the producer?
Well, as I said, we found that Clemente was the perfect vehicle for this project. In large part, again, you have a phenomenal athlete. There's no way of disputing that. But also you have the generosity of the man in regards to how he engaged with the community and how he was giving. The fact that he dies on a mission to help people who are endangered, whose lives are threatened, is a perfect example of the kind of person. And that's what I was trying to say earlier about character. We live in a very transactional society right now. Absolutely. Where people are all looking at ways in which that I want to get something from you as opposed to let's see how we can benefit collectively. And that was not Clemente. Mm-hmm. It's important for us to see people of character who understand that they are not here just for themselves. And I think that part of the benefit of telling this story in the way that we do allows us to put a spotlight on that level of engagement. So hopefully we move people to think differently about how we live, because we don't want to just, Plowshares doesn't want to just do great art. We want to do great art that is relevant and moves people for positive change. And so if we could become less transactional, I think we'd be a happier people, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Feel free to give a round of applause there. I appreciate the authenticity and the emotion in your words. Yeah. And I definitely felt that. And as I was introduced to it, I looked up Roberto Clemente. I didn't know that much about him. And I turned 44 yesterday, and he was 38.
I know, man.
And I just could not believe how much he accomplished, but also how much more that he had to give before his life was lost. So thank you for sharing this. So I'm going to come back to you, Consuela. One of the things that stood out and about this story about Roberto Clemente is his refusal to separate identities. Right, and it came out a couple different times in a couple different scenes. He was proud to be Puerto Rican. He openly acknowledged the African ancestry, and he challenged anybody who didn't see it that way. I've had an opportunity to get to know you a little bit. You challenge people who don't see that, and unapologetically, which I love and appreciate. So when you think about that conversation from the past and the conversations that are happening today, when it comes around Afro-Latino identity, belonging, so on and so forth, talk a little bit about what resonates from the past as you see it in 2026.
Oh my God, that's such a loaded question.
I did that. I did that on purpose. I loaded it up for you.
First of all, I have to say that I really did enjoy the play. And it did trigger a lot of things like growing up. And the one thing that a part of the play was the you black or you not black. And also for me, it's like you're not black. I'm not black enough for black people. I'm not Latin enough for Latin people. And the people I found, the people who are always accusing you for not being enough are usually the ones that don't know anything about themselves.
Wow.
At all.
Wow.
And so, and a lot of times people, when it comes to like here in the United States, being black and being Afro-Latin is it's the same to me. It's just like what the actor said, it's just where the ship dropped you off at. And what complicates things is the white supremacist system that everything is based off. And that's the lens in which all of us were raised and seen. And so in Latin America, the re-education schools that happen in the United States, those same re-education schools in Latin America were the universities, and those universities still exist today. And it took people, indigenous people, African people, and everything about your identity, your language, everything, even who you pray to, was totally erased. 90% of the African slave trade happened in the Caribbean. Only 5% came to the United States, America, where we're at. Only 5%. And in America here, it was perfected, so they knew to separate all the tribes and the clans and the languages, so they didn't have the uprising. The reason why New Orleans is as brilliant as it is in Congo Square is because it was still a part of the Caribbean, and it was a part of the French colonization, so things kind of like took differently, but all of our music, everything has that African rhythm in it. And it was the Afro-Latin people that still had that memory and was still able to play the congas. And when African-American musicians came to New Orleans, they were able to hide it in the piano. They were able to hide it very well in the guitar. And so when you have plays like this, it gives an opportunity to have a blatant conversation, so we can stop pointing at each other like you're not this and you're not that, and understanding why we are doing that, and rise above it, and then become more transactional. Because my word for it, as Joe always said, we're more sexy. We're a very beautiful, awesome, sexy people, and everyone is trying to be like us, emulate us, our clothes. There's nothing in this room that we didn't touch. Not even with science, it's nothing. So our brilliance outshine everything. And when we remember that, but I also have to say, you cannot remember something you never were taught. So this is a mechanism to create a cultural and educational exchange.
That's amazing. No, thank you for that. Couple more questions for you all. And I saw you got the mic. You ready for my next question? No, it's for you. Don't pass it. Don't pass it. As I was doing a little bit of research on the good brother Clemente, I saw this quote. Anytime you have an opportunity to make a difference in this world and you don't, then you are wasting your time on earth. When I think about that, when I reflect on that, it doesn't feel like a quote, it feels like a challenge, right? So when we think about Detroit, where we are, we think about the communities we live in, the world that we're living in, and how it's shifting and changing, what does that challenge look like now? So let's take it beyond the moment, and let's think a little bigger and take it 30,000 feet. What do we think about that? His words as we look at the world today.
Given that I haven't had breakfast or anything, that's exactly the question I wanted to hear. So, well, I can only put it in my life, right? What do I do to kind of live up to those words? And one thing that my wife and I do is we really mentor people within the arts, right? I think we all can do what we can, right? Clemente had a bigger, voice, a bigger microphone. He was a professional baseball player, and he actually used it. I think those words still ring true. I think we all have to do that. Not everyone can. Not everyone thinks like that. So I don't want to give the onus to someone who, they just taking care of their family, right? Leaders are few. Mm-hmm. And I think the problem we have now that those people that can be leaders, they sign contracts with corporations. And once you do that, your voice is gone, right? I mean, they'll give you money to a school or whatever, but their voice is taken from them. At that time, also we have to see, at the time Clemente became Clemente, which was in the 60s, where you have Muhammad Ali, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, you have the Black Panthers, the Young Lords, you have so many organizations and people speaking
Yeah.
on freedom that Clemente wasn't targeted, although he was investigated by the FBI, by the way, like everyone else who was speaking out. And so another part, when I was approaching this play, I was looking at it historically. Wow, I realized this is the 60s. I grew up in the 60s. There was a war against people, and this is a question we always ask, my wife and I talk about this, is what do revolutionaries want? Right? The Black Panthers wanted to feed the kids, you know, have housing, have health care. Why is that wrong?
Right.
That's not even revolutionary,
No,
if you ask me, right?
Right.
But the powers, the people who don't want to give us that, why don't they want to give us that? Why do you have to fight so hard? And I think when Clemente, I know I'm veering off, but when Clemente is talking to King and he says, you know, protesting the shoes are worn. You know, like, why do we have to do all that to get bread?
Yeah.
We just want a little thing. So I think the way it looks now, I think everyone can do what Gary's doing is important. What you're doing is important. What you're doing is important. Passing the knowledge, making sure people communicate about these things is important. So, I mean, we do our part because we take these young people and we try to help them get into the arts, because the arts are vicious. I mean, we talk, being an artist is tougher than being in the Marines. And, you know, that's the way we look at it. Without the pay, without the uniform, without the backup, and without the guns.
Right.
So we try to educate our people that we come in contact with.
Absolutely. Care to share any thoughts?
Sure. Well, part of the impetus behind using baseball is that baseball has always been a platform for civil rights, and it's also been a platform in where issues of identity and access have always been exploited. The first Latin players to be added to Major League Baseball teams was in 1911. And what was required of them to be Major League Baseball players was the teams asked them to sign affidavits that they had no African blood in their bodies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was the first thing that got me excited about this subject.
Right.
And then there was, as you've seen throughout the history, when they allowed Jackie Robinson to break the color line, the idea was that it was going to transform Major League Baseball. And what they were really doing is they were trying to attract black audiences to these games. They were losing white audience. They were trying to increase their audience. Interesting how the same strategy was used in theater, right?
Wow.
When they want to increase their audiences, they try to find ways of building on what they would call minority communities. You know, it's what they used to call the UPN model or the WB model. You know, because they did that with television too. But in 1980, I have to openly admit I'm a nerd. When I graduated from high school, the 1980 census came out. And that was the first time they had these numbers showing a major increase in Hispanic and Latinos in the country. And it was almost months after that information got into the national conversation that we started talking about friction between Latino and African American community, because at that time, and when I was a kid, blacks were the largest minority community, and then they started all these issues being brought up about, was there going to be friction between these two communities, you know, vying over who was going to be primary, and I never understood why that was the approach, really, because there were so many similarities in our experiences. There were so many challenges that we shared. And the only reason why it was because the people who had control of the media wanted to foment the very friction that they were questioning was going to occur. And you still see it today. You still see it where you'll have a player like Sammy Sosa, who used to be in baseball, he said he was not black, and to the point where he actually bleached his skin, which was horrible. But you also see it in regards to how we had Kurt Flood in this play, who was fighting for free agency so that he could finally get some sense of, ownership, some sense of citizenship inside the game of baseball. Well, that's Colin Kaepernick, right?
Yeah.
And they did the exact same thing to him. They quelched him, they destroyed him, right? They took away all his opportunity. So these battles are the same. It doesn't matter what skin color we're wearing, right? These are battles that we have to constantly wage. And we need evidence of leaders, the kind of character of the individuals, to show us that there is a different way.
Wow.
My great-grandmother would say this all the time. She was a good Baptist. And she would say, the greatest trick the devil ever taught us was to think we had no power. So part of what is behind this project is to display the power that we actually have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Any thoughts before I go to my final question, Consuela?
It's so many thoughts, but one of the things that to go on about having the same battle and same history and so many similarities. Here in Detroit, the first group of Puerto Ricans that came to Detroit,
Right.
they were not allowed to live in Corktown, which was the beginning of Southwest Detroit Latin community or Spanish-speaking community. And so they were forced to live in Black Bottom.
That's right.
My family came here in 1919, that same year, and they were forced to live in Black Bottom. So we had our family split. The dark-skinned folks had to stay in Black Bottom, and the lighter-skinned stayed in Corktown. And so what I find that is a problem currently now, especially with this new regime, it's not even new, is with immigration and things like that.
Right.
Just in the past year, especially in districts 5 and 7, in one month, 43 families were taken. And another month, 93 people just disappeared in District 5. And so, and people are like, wait a minute, what are you talking about?
Right.
These people look just like us.
Yes.
And so, because like people will know that I'm Latina, not just by me saying my name, or if I start speaking, you may or may not hear an accent. We look just like you because we are you. But the problem that I found, and I'm also a state commissioner in the Hispanic Latino Commission, what I find across the state in the past couple of years, there's been a lot of Latinos coming from Cuba, Venezuela, and Colombia, and if they look like this, they do not get the same resources. I had a family, a Cuban family, stayed across the street, all their resources taken away. And if it wasn't for my daughter and I providing food for them, and at one point they were living in a house with no heat, they had no food, and I would pray, was scared every day that I would not see them because they froze to death or their house would freeze down. And the black people in the neighborhood would, they would treat them badly because they didn't speak English, and the children, which was 7 and 5 at the time, they were treated even worse, and they would get bullied all the time. And by law, you're supposed to provide bilingual education, bilingual tools, and the school didn't do anything. And so right now, this day, you have a lot of African immigrants that's living in this city, that's living in this state, that's living all across this country, who are living off someone else's kindness. That Roberto Clemente, that's what it was a part of him. So yes, it's true that when you start doing and being the truth, time comes shorter.
Wow, thank you. Final question that I have, and I want to, I guess lighten it up a little for this final question. I appreciate just the authenticity and vulnerability that you all are sharing. love to hear from everyone. We're here because of a play, right? So art has a unique ability to open hearts in ways that sometimes statistics and headlines just often can't. What role do you all think that storytelling, theater, cultural expression play in just helping us create a more connected community? And we'll end with those final thoughts.
Again, I'm a nerd, so I know a lot of stuff about it. So, like, one of the physiological things that occurs to an audience when they're experiencing the same story is that you'll realize that everybody's heartbeat gets on the same rhythm. Now, I've always questioned why that's so, and it's got to be because of the communal experience of seeing or hearing a story collectively that changes us in a way of being able to receive the information. Theater is about empathy and developing compassion. You understand the lives of other people who don't look like you, or you may not think are about like you, and gets you to care about their plight. That happens every time a great story is told. And I think that's part of what we want to do with this show, is that create a sense of understanding that people see. The model of an individual who endured circumstances, sometimes foisted upon him by forces who did not want to see him succeed, and yet he overcame. I think that's critical for us to put out today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Well, I'm a storyteller, and humanity, since we were, transforming from the early stages of Homo sapien, stories is what kept us together, right? Stories is the highest thing we could achieve.
Right.
It passed down histories before they were written. It connects us. A story that comes out of the jungle in the Amazon can reach across the world, right? And we'll pay a lot of money to see it. So for me, the most political thing you can do is tell stories, and you transform lives, whether you tell them to theater or storytelling, poems, songs. They kind of do the same thing to all of us. I think where stories gets manipulated by the powers is that they make us into a single story.
That's right.
They make,
That's right.
Latinos, the stereotype of Latinos, of blacks, of any culture, becomes the single story, and that's why we get in movies a lot. The angry, violent black American, the immigrant Latino. So we get stuck on those stories, and for storytellers who, we try to work in the industry, I always fight against that. So therefore, a lot of doors are closed to me, because I'm not telling the story and I could easily tell those stories. I mean, they're simple. For example, I wrote this movie about kids in the Upper West Side in the Bronx, in Manhattan, who have a baseball team, and they gave the script to one of these Hollywood producers, directors, and he said, "Oh, I like the story, but can we change it where the Latino kids who are really good teach the white kids how to be good, and then the white kids beat them?" And that's almost every Karate Kid.
Right.
That's the Karate Kid
right.
syndrome.
It's Tarzan.
The Tarzan. and I sent him a message that if he pays me $1 million, I'll write that stupid movie. I won't change mine. And that it would take me like 3 days to write it. Because all I have to do is copy Tarzan, copy all these other stupid movies that are racist, where you basically are saying, disempower us, give us your power, which is the symbol and the metaphor of racism, right? So that's what we're dealing with. So we have to be careful. Storytelling is so powerful that they want to use it that way. So what happens? Our kids go see these movies, and they root for the wrong
That's
person.
right.
Right? So then when you're dealing with your kids and you're talking to them, you have to erase that. I got thrown out of school and they told me, I'm a teaching artist in New York, and that movie, what's the
Ghost.
movie with,
It's Ghost.
huh? Ghost. Remember Ghost, the movie?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Where Whoopi Goldberg gives her body to a white man so he could have sex with his white wife, right? So I was going to school, and I have all these kids in the classroom. These are dysfunctional high schoolers. They're like this, you know. They don't want to do anything. So I said, so Ghost was out, and some of them had seen it. So I said it was a racist movie. So I started explaining it to them that there were two white teachers, and they got really alarmed. And the kids, by the time I finished with them, and this is 45-minute classes, they were sitting straight. They were engaged with me. Unfortunately, when you give power to kids who haven't had power, I think they started right after I left. You know, they needed other people there. That another teacher who.
They didn't hurt anybody.
No, they didn't hurt anybody.
Arguing
Just
with
through.
the teachers.
They were there. They argued with the teachers,
Yeah.
and because I guess the teachers tried to tell them that what I said was wrong, right? And they argued. So they told me if I went back to the school, I would be arrested.
Wow.
Why? What did I do wrong? I took a negative C, and I put, a semi-C in there because it was so, I had 45 minutes. And that's what happens. I go to schools and the teacher's teaching a class. I get there early, and they see all these lies. And I'm like, and so education is the first brainwashing, obviously, and then movies, TV, arts, because it comes from the power elite. So that's a war that we are engaged in. I do it through my storytelling by subverting those images. Sometimes they find out that I have those images and my plays kind of get rejected. But, that's something that we have to be alert. It's a powerful medium, but we also have to control it. So by Gary doing a play like this, and there's several companies who do this type of work, we are able to, free up some minds.
Yeah. All right. As I give you the final word, I said end on a lighter note. I guess I was wrong about that. Nothing light about that note. But final word, just any thoughts you want to share in regards to how art is utilized. No pressure.
Civilizations are not remembered by their politicians, but by their artists.
Wow.
When I learned that quote when I was in college, it impacted me because it's the truth. Storytelling is a part of our DNA. During World War II, Garcia Lorca, who was a poet, what they did in Spain was all the artists, they killed them. All the books, they destroyed it. And any civilization, war, whatever, the most powerful voice are the artists, because we're the ones that awaken, enlighten, encourage, invigorate. We connect, we heal. And my work in doing human trafficking against children, what I found was that I wasn't trying to beat the system. I was just trying to find lighthouse within the system to provide sustenance and support for family members. And what I found, a mother who's like, how can I protect my child? Nobody saved me. And she wasn't speaking as a 35-year-old, she was speaking from an 8-year-old who was traumatized. And so 2 years later, what I find now, what I'm doing is that I'm using the arts. I'm also the executive director of Mirismo, Latin arts, indigenous arts. where we connect artists from all genres across the state and connecting to master artists around the world. And we have master classes, and we have community classes, and we have a rumba abierto at the end of the month, where you can come and learn how to dance, sing, percussion, and things like that. And I was in Kalamazoo performing bomba, which is over 500 years old, and it's African roots in Puerto Rico. And you have all these people here, and this woman was standing there, and I was wearing all white, I had my dress on, and we brought other like dresses out. And then soon she saw me, she put the dress on and the drums were playing, and she danced and she was crying. And she said, "You don't know." You don't know how much I miss this, being a part of the community. I was disconnected. I was disconnected. I didn't feel like I had my voice. I almost felt like I forgot who I was. And you just brought all of this back home. It's like playa, it was arroz con dulce, it was like all of these things all within this rhythm. And so for me, not only am I empowered, but I'm empowering other people to remember who they are. I'm reminding people who look just like me but have no identity at all, and not to their fault of their own, but it is your fault in the age of technology that you make a choice to remain ignorant, and you make a choice to demonize and point at other African people in the diaspora and tell them they don't have a story, or you're ashamed of being black. You don't have that power. You don't have that power, and you don't have that right. When the police pull us over, they're gonna pull all of us over. If we are going to be, they're gonna incriminate all of us. So if that's the case, then it just serves us to do our power. We all have the power to work together, to learn each other's stories, and to be not just allies and not just advocates, but accomplices to the truth, and bringing our community back to the source of who we are in our storytelling. That's what that part in the movie Sinners, when they're all dancing, all the cultures, that made me cry. You made me cry. I was so cold, so the tears would have been frozen. But the actors, all of you, like, much love and power to you. Much love and power, because this is sacred work, and I'm grateful to be here with you all. Thank you.
That was amazing. That, again, Beyond the Diamond, Roberto Clemente, Identity and Activism. This has been a live post-show conversation hosted by the Just Community Podcast. We thank you all. Thank you for allowing us to be a part of this. Everybody, thank you.